Hello everyone. You are here because you are looking for something to play, good old fun. So, let's get started. And today we have in the issue Comix Zone. Lately, I've been getting more and more nostalgic for the old games from my childhood. Now the games do not cause such a wild delight as 20 years ago, and I decided to go back to the past, or rather 1995. This year, one of my favorite Comix Zone games for the much-loved Sega Mega Drive console was released. Description: Comix Zone is a video game in the genre of arcade action, released for the Sega Mega Drive game console in 1995. 5 years later it was ported to other platforms. The main feature of the game is its stylization as a comic book. The game takes place on the pages of the comic book. Comix Zone is an action platformer in which the player progresses through panels not so different from the pages from the comic book. To progress, the player must fight their way through the ranks of monsters and solve puzzles. The music for the game was written by composer Howard Drawson, later released on a separate disc. The graphics were mostly created by comic book artists. The characters of the game were transferred from real people by digitization and motion capture technology, so they looked and moved with great realism for that time. History: Sketch Turner, Hungary artist and free rock musician, working on his latest comic book, the same name with the name of the game. Comix Zone is a story about the attempts of the New World Empire to protect the Earth from the invasion of alien renegades. Inspiration is drawn from the strangely vivid dreams and nightmares of the Sketch. One night, while the Sketch is working on the Comix Zone, a thunderstorm begins and lightning strikes the panel with the comics. At the same moment, the main villain of the Comix Zone, a powerful person named Mortis, escapes from the book pages and throws the stunned Sketch into the zone. Having no powers in this reality, Mortis wants to free himself by destroying the Sketch in the comic book. Inside the comic, Sketch meets a general named Alice Yan. Alice is convinced that Sketch is a superhero, the chosen one, who has come to save their post-apocalyptic world from the evil Mortis and aggressive aliens. Ignoring Sketch's protests, Alice sends him on a mission, broadcasting instructions and hints over the radio. Mortis, once out of the Comix Zone, is free to change the world at will by simply drawing enemies in the face of the Sketch, or, in one case, burning part of the page. In the final and partly unfinished panel, the Sketch discovers a nuclear weapon ready to be launched. Alice is working to disarm it. Enraged, Mortis climbs into the Comix Zone and shoots Alice inside the nuclear plant, which begins to fill with liquid. Sketch must defeat Mortis once and for all and try to save Alice from drowning. Gameplay: Since the world where the hero is located is paper, anything within the Comix Zone can negatively affect the Sketch, reducing its health bar. The hero carries out his journey together with his pet rat Roadkill, also transferred to the comic. The little friend helps the Sketch in finding useful items, as well as in switching hard-to-reach levers. The Sketch is able to tear the backdrops to shreds and put them in paper planes that are thrown at enemies as weapons. Since the paper world is part of everything in the Comix Zone, drawn on paper, this action significantly reduces the player's health. Certain combos push enemies together, and if a fragile frame gets in the way, the enemy tears it apart. The Sketch rat, Roadkill, is also able to work with switches and find items hidden in panels. The game has 3 endings, depending on the outcome of the final confrontation with Mortis. In a good ending, the Sketch, defeating Mortis, manages to save Alice, and together they leave the world of the Comix Zone. In the bad ending, the Sketch, defeating Mortis, fails to save Alice, and the final video shows him grieving for her. If there was a rat in the pocket at the end of the game, we can see it in the final video. In case of failure of the game, the hero died and all lives are spent. The villain Mortis is confirmed in the real world, turning from a drawn character into a real one. Episodes: The game consists of 3 episodes, each of which is divided into 2 levels. Episode 1, Night of the Mutants, New York, Street Sowers, Mutant Base. Episode 2, Welcome to the Temple, Himalayas, Mountain Trail, Tibetan City, Kwanghung Temple. Episode 3, The Curse of the Lost Ships, New Zealand, Caves, Abandoned Shipyard. The game has 3 endings, depending on the outcome of the final confrontation with Mortis. In a good ending, the Sketch, defeating Mortis, manages to save Alice, and together they leave the world of the Comix Zone. In the bad ending, the Sketch, defeating Mortis, fails to save Alice, and the final video shows him grieving for her. If there was a rat in the pocket at the end of the game, we can see it in the final video. In case of failure of the game, the hero died, and all lives are spent. The villain Mortis is confirmed in the real world, turning from a drawn character into a real one. Items. The sketch can carry a maximum of 3 of the following items. Knife seriously injures the enemy, activates levers that are inaccessible at a distance. A bunch of dynamites is placed on the floor and, after a while, explodes. Grenade throws at the enemy. Roadkill. A pet rat, transferred to the comics. Activates inaccessible levers and finds hidden objects. Can attack enemies with electric shocks and kills female warriors at once. Iced tea. Restores 50% of energy. Question randomly gives you any prize, except the rat. Can explode and cause damage. Characters. Sketch Turner, the game's protagonist, comic book artist, and rock musician working on the comic strip Comix Zone. The sketch gets inside its zone, where it must fight various enemies. After reaching the end of each page, the sketch temporarily turns into a superhero. The superhero score is filled in as you progress. Alicia Yan, General of the New World Empire, faces a Sketch in the command center. Alicia believes that Sketch is the chosen one and sends him on a mission against alien forces. Roadkill. The tamed rat of the Turner sketch, living in real time. Sketch discovers a rat in the comic book trapped in a cage and rescues it. The Roadkill's tail is slightly touched by lightning, so it is electrified and can shock enemies. Often, the Roadkill must help its owner to avoid obstacles and find hidden objects to solve problems. Strigil. A shadowy alien renegade. Known for the ability to teleport everything around, merging it with the ground. In addition, he carries a weapon named after himself, using it to shoot blasts or hook on rods. Gravis. A giant and muscular alien renegade. Steam often comes from the entrance holes on its back. Gravis relies on its ability to generate explosive springs and launch them at enemies. Styx. A monk located in a Tibetan city. He wields a powerful stick, which he uses in one of 2 ways, a shot with a fire charge or a jump like a pole. Mongolia. A dangerous female warrior using a hook attached to her long, braided hair. Mongolia is afraid of mice. Sometimes. Pelagus. A renegade who prefers to grab onto anything used for climbing. His attack methods include slime balls and springs that turn into mines. Breeding mutants. These mutants emerge from the silt. Capturing a mutant only makes it stronger. Crawling cocoon. A food source for newly spawned mutants. Tries to sting the player. Flying creature. Not very strong, but very unpleasant winged mutants. Dragon, Big Mama. A giant reptile hanging from the ceiling of the mutant base. Mama is quite upset when the sketch destroys her children. Hoping for revenge, she vows to get rid of the sketch. This fire-breathing reptile also knows how to bite the enemy. Fire barrels make it easy to get rid of Mom, who is torn to pieces when she dies. Kung Feng. Master of the Mountain Temple. Trains Mortis men to fight in the tournament. Kung Feng decides to teach Sketch a lesson after he comments on his long nails. This character sends fireballs into the water on the floor of the room and also launches explosive nails. Mortis. The main villain of Comix Zone. Comes off the pages of a comic book after a real lightning strike. After throwing his creator, Sketch, into the book, Mortis takes a pen and starts drawing enemies, hoping to kill Sketch to become real. Becomes the final boss after a Sketch reveals his plans to launch nuclear weapons in the New World Empire. During the final battle, Mortis teleports randomly and constantly taunts Sketch. After being defeated, Mortis explodes. Comix Zone is a very cool game that is a cult, and perhaps it was not played, only the current youth. As for the game, I would like to note very good graphics, drawing characters. The main character has a wide variety of combat strikes, which during the game you will not get bored. It is also possible to use weapons in the form of bombs, knives, and so on. The storyline is at a high level, and from the first minutes of the game, it fascinates us even more. And perhaps the very idea of the design of the game in the form of comics is quite non-standard and unusual, due to which this game has gained high popularity. Thank you all very much for your attention. Put likes, subscribe, and play good games. See ya.
Yeah. Yeah.